Court to establish conditions conducive to respect for obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law, one of the fundamental objectives of the United Nations Charter. In the present case, Mr. President, the Court has been asked to apply the 1948 Genocide Convention, one of the most fundamental multilateral treaties of our time. Invoking the 1948 Genocide Convention is a matter of utmost gravity. This is a treaty that we made following the systematic killing of more than 6 million European Jews, and that my country wholeheartedly signed as early as 30th December 1949 and ratified on 14th March 1956. Genocide is a crime that the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda applied in response to the mass killing of perhaps 70% of the Tutsis in Rwanda. It is a crime that is not applied by the tribunal to the former Yugoslavia for the displacement of approximately 1 million residents of Kosovo in 1999. Neither was it applied by that tribunal nor by this court when deciding upon the exodus of the Serb population from Croatia in 1995. In both situations, international justice resisted the temptation to use this strongest of legal classifications because the requisite specific intent to physically destroy the targeted group in whole or in part was not present. Regrettably, the Gambia has placed before the court an incomplete and misleading factual picture of the situation in Rakhine State in Myanmar. Yet it is of the utmost importance that the court assess the situation obtaining on the ground in Rakhine dispassionately and accurately. The situation in Rakhine is complex and not easy to fathom, but one thing surely touches all of us equally: the sufferings of the many innocent people whose lives were torn apart as a consequence of the armed conflicts of 2016 and 2017, in particular, those who have had to flee their homes and are now living in camps in Cox's Bazar. Mr. President and members of the court, the troubles of Rakhine State and its population, whatever their background, go back into past centuries and have been particularly severe over the past few years. Currently, an internal armed conflict is going on there between the Arakan army, an organized Buddhist armed group with more than 5,000 fighters, and the regular Myanmar Defense Services. None of the speakers yesterday made any reference to this. The Arakan army seeks autonomy or independence for Rakhine, or Arakan as it was called, finding inspiration in the memory of the historic kingdom of Arakan. This conflict has led to the displacement of thousands of civilians in Rakhine. Standard security restrictions, such as curfew and checkpoints, are in place at present in the conflict zone and affect the situation of civilians there, regardless of their background. Mr. President, on 9th October 2016, approximately 400 fighters of the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, known as ARSA, launched simultaneous attacks on 3 police posts in Maundor and Rathedam townships in northern Rakhine, near the border with Bangladesh. ARSA claims responsibility for these attacks, which led to the death of 9 police officers, more than 100 dead or missing civilians, and the theft of 68 guns and more than 10,000 rounds of ammunition. This was the start of an internal armed conflict between ARSA and Myanmar's defense services, which lasted until late 2017. The selective factual propositions contained in the Gambia's application actually concern this conflict. In the months following the 9th October 2016 attacks, ARSA grew in strength in the Maundor, Budidao, and Rathedam townships in northern Rakhine. It resorted to threats and intimidation against local villagers in order to gain support and allegiance, executing suspected informers. According to, among others, the International Crisis Group, ARSA received weapons and explosives training from Afghan and Pakistani militants. In the early morning of 25th August 2017, several thousand ARSA fighters launched coordinated attacks on more than 30 police posts and villages and an army base in North Rakhine. Most of the attacks took place on the narrow Maungdaw Plain, which is framed by densely forested hills to the east and the border with Bangladesh to the west. Indications are that ARSA's objective was to seize Maungdaw Township. It may aid the court to briefly consider the historical significance of Maungdaw. When Britain made Burma a colonial entity separate from British Burma in 1937, the border between Burma and India was drawn along the river Naf, where we find today's border between Bangladesh and Myanmar. The historical kingdom of Arakan had at times extended much further to the north than the river Naf, including most of what is today Chittagong district in Bangladesh. Members of some Rakhine communities therefore felt that the border drawn by the British was too far south, others that it was too far north. Myanmar has never challenged this border since independence in 1948. Britain did not lose control over what is today Maungdaw Township during World War II. From September 1942, a number of local Muslim families offered fighters to the British irregular V-Force set up to collect intelligence and initially absorb any Japanese advance.